And hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel. I'm your host, Marshall. And today we're going to talk about playing different. And this is something that I put some thought into, although this morning I've been very preoccupied with domestic duties. So I apologize if my presentation isn't as smooth as it could be on this topic. But I have thought this through and I wanted to talk about playing different. What sets Kriegspiel apart from other games? Because we had some discussion come up last week in a game that I'm running, and it was a very thought-provoking discussion. I hope that the players, I actually had multiple discussions. The players uh, found the discussions to be helpful and found it to be a cause for introspection, as those conversations were for me. So I just kind of want to explain what is different about Kriegspiel versus other games and um, how that informs or changes the way we play. So let's talk about that. Real quick, I want to make sure that if there are any issues on like the live stream or whatever, let me know right away. Okay, I see Achilles there, so it looks like he's getting the live stream. I know in the past few weeks we've had a couple of quirky issues with the live stream not working the way it should, but it looks like everything is working right. So let's get into this. Okay, let's talk about gaming, right? When you play a game, you play with one thing in mind, and that is to win. You want to defeat your opponent. And so you take a game like chess, which really chess is the ultimate board game. It really is. There is no greater game than chess. It's been refined over centuries. And it's a phenomenal strategy game. There's not really any luck involved. So I like to use chess as an example. And when you play chess until either you win decisively, which means you checkmate the opponent's king. The enemy king cannot move out of check. He's doomed, he's going to be captured. Or you play until one side or the other resigns, which they do by laying down their king. And when they do that, they're giving up, they're surrendering. They've come to the realization, hey, I can't win. I'm now only wasting time. I surrender, game over. Let's go do something else. And that is how most people play games. In fact, many games you really can't surrender. In many games, in fact, you don't even calculate the victory points until the game is concluded. So you play the game to the bitter end, even if one person is just running away with it. And that's how most people play games, and that's what people expect. In the United States, and I'm an American, so here in the United States, we teach people not to give up, not to quit, even if you're behind. Like, I have watched professional sports games where one team has racked up the score so far that the other team has no hope of winning. And at that point, logically, you would say, you know what, why risk injury to players? Why continue to pour energy and effort and resources into this game when it is now a hopeless cause? Why not just say, all right, we're going to call it, we're going to shake hands in the middle of the field, and we're all just going to go home and we're going to review the tapes and figure out how we can do better next time? Why not put that energy into some other kind of practice or something? Because this here is now a lost cause. And yet the players will play the game as though they have a chance of winning right to the very last second of the game. And of course, that's what professional athletes do and professional sports teams do. And there's some other things involved, right? You know, it's an entertainment activity. People paid to watch it. They want to get their whole game, and so on. I get that, right? There is a problem with that approach, however, when it comes to, war, which is something that Kriegspiel is intended to simulate very closely. Now, I don't want to say that Kriegspiel equals war. It absolutely does not. It is a there's no comparison. Okay, it's a completely different sport, but yet it is modeled on war and it is training for war. It is absolutely that. So you have to think about it in that context, right? So we have that straight. When you take this, we're going to play to the bitter end approach to warfare, well, that's unrealistic and it's suicidal. We've seen it before. If you look at the end of World War II, for example, the Germans fought to the bitter end. Like they were still fighting even after their leader had put a bullet in his head. And so that's just astounding. And the human cost of that continued fighting was absolutely tremendous. And of course, we see it today as an absurdity. Most battles, and I would say 99% of all the battles out there, are not fought to the bitter end. Very few are fought to the bitter end. Let's take a look at one, Thermopylae, right? That was fought to the bitter end. But there was a reason for that. You know, the Spartans and the Thebans and whoever were with them, they were surrounded and they were, they had no chance of escape. So what else could they do but fight to the bitter end? But most battles are not fought like that. When Lee was defeated at Gettysburg, he retreated from the field, but he still had this massive army of his. It was still an intact force. In fact, President Lincoln was kind of cross that General Meade did not pursue this force and destroy it, when it was kind of when it was weakened. But of course, General Meade's army was also weakened by the experience and exhausted and couldn't really do a proper pursuit. So, as you see, war is not one of these things where people go all in every hand. It's not like a poker game where you're playing with a bunch of amateurs who push all their chips to the middle of the table on every hand just so they can steal the blinds. It's not like that. War is paid for with human lives. And as a general, you have to be compassionate and realistic about that. And that your soldiers are not likely to willingly throw themselves down on the ground dead because you simply want to continue fighting to the bitter end. In fact, it's a great way to get a mutiny. It's a great way to get fragged. It's a great way to get your men to hate you as well as the public back home. So, not to mention the historians, the unkindest cut of all, right? So, in Kriegsspiel, we do not play battles to the bitter end. There's a couple of reasons for that. The big one is what I've just explained to you is it's completely unrealistic. However, we are playing Kriegsspiel as a game in the International Kriegsspiel Society. So there are a lot of players who say, no, I want to play to the bitter end. I want to play until all of my opponent's blocks are destroyed or my opponent agrees to surrender. And I get that. I understand that. But we're also playing it as a game. So the argument for is also an argument against. And the explanation there is the game takes time, it takes energy, it takes resources. And at a certain point, you realize, hey, there is no possible condition where red or blue is going to win. So let's just kind of call it here. As an umpire, that's your discretion. And this is typically what umpires do in Kriegspiel games. They call the games before they get to the bitter end, before one player or the other surrenders. That is often to the chagrin of the players. The players themselves are like, wait a minute, I still have this cavalry unit. What are you talking about? And in fact, case in point here, I've pulled up a game, and I'm not going to say whose game it was, but I've pulled up a game where this very thing happened. I called this game, and if you look at the game, you might be able to predict who you think would win the battle. Now, let's talk about this in some detail here because I think this illustration will make it clear what I'm talking about here. This here is the objective, and the two players are supposed to come, seize the objective, and hold it. And player red has brought cavalry forces to the field. It's an all cavalry force. They have lancers here, 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 and here, and one unit of dragoons. And they sent their dragoons in to occupy the objective, which I think was a brilliant move. It was a very good move. And then, of course, they have their all lancer force. But you'll notice that they have this little S on them. This one does not. These do. And what that means is that the force is spent. In other words, these lancers and these cavalry units up here have already clashed, and the horses are blown. The horses are spent, and they are basically no longer an effective fighting force at this time. They need at least several hours, if not the day, to recover from the experience of charging into each other. And again, both commanders going all in at the middle of the table, all in, a poker reference where you put all your money in. You risk it all for an all or nothing attack. Here we have an artillery section, which was a larger, it was a half battery before. It's been reduced by hits. I put them -4 CV. Basically, under K22 rules, it's just one hit away from being removed from the board. In the context of this particular game, once this marker appears in your unit, this dark red marker, it's no longer available to you. So red player has dragoons inside the objective, and they have a unit of lancers over here that are still relatively fresh and could be ordered to fight. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what blue has. Blue has horse artillery, which is set up and ready to go. And any lancers or anybody who comes out is probably going to be fired on by the artillery. The artillery could also be turned against the low walled complex here, where I said, hey, it's got a 4-foot wall. It's enough for a soldier to stand and fire over it, but it's not like a really high wall. The walls can be surmounted by infantry. So they could batter down the wall over time. And of course, they've got 2 infantry units, and these are elite infantry. Both of these units have suffered some disruption. You know, they've been involved in some fighting, but they are elite. They will recover if given it enough time. They've got some skirmishers here. And over time, the presence of the infantry supported by artillery is probably going to be decisive over the dragoons, which are in here. Now, could the dragoons hold out? Maybe, but probably not over time. Probably over time, blue is going to reduce this objective and destroy it. And ultimately, red is going to lose. So, why call the game though? Why not roll it out to the bitter end? Well, again, it takes time and energy and resources. And in fact, both commanders have spent so much of their force on each other that it's almost a double loss. Because one of the conditions of the battle was, hey, don't expend all of your force. You need to go easy on this because we need your forces for the main battle, which is coming later. Both of these groups represent an advance guard that were told that, hey, this is where we expect the main battle to be here. We want you to seize this fortified compound and hold it so when the main army comes up, we have this as a strong point in our line. Kind of like that was done at Waterloo, where the British occupied some fortified farmhouses, well, walled farm complexes, Hougoumont, and I forget the name of the other one, but it's like right there. I'll remember after the show. Um, but anyway, they're not supposed to blow all of their resources, and of course, what have they done? They've done exactly that. They've spent a lot of their resources so that this cavalry is probably not going to be effective when the battle comes, and these infantry are probably also not going to be particularly effective when the main battle is joined. So even if blue takes this objective, they've taken it at a cost that is above what their commanders in chief wanted them to pay. So, like I said, it's almost a double loss situation. Does red have a case to say, hey, we should play this out, I could still win? Yes, they do. Absolutely, because they do have some odds. They still have to roll the dice and you have to win the die rolls. And even though the die rolls will be modified, well, blue does have to make the die rolls. I get that. But again, this is that play to the bitter end mentality that is unrealistic in warfare. Now, I happen to know some people who play Kriegsspiel for a living, and I will not say anything further than that. But I was shocked to learn that they will often call games at the moment of first contact. I'm like, really? You mean when the 2 armies like finally see each other and the battle is about to start, you call the game? And they're like, yes, we do. Why do you do that? Good question. Well, for one, the purpose of the exercise, and again, this is in a professional context, is to illustrate a lesson or to assess mastery of a lesson. In other words, I want you to learn this, or I want to know whether or not you learned it. And so they're testing. And what they're trying to figure out is, Can these cadets learn this lesson and have they learned it? Okay, we've established that. So that happens sometimes at the moment of contact because maybe the lesson is about scouting. Maybe the lesson is about maneuvering into position. It could be anything. But once the lesson has been either illustrated or evaluated, there is no point to carrying on the exercise. It's just like writing an essay, right? You start at the beginning, you work your way through the middle, and when you get to the end, you stop. No matter how long or short it is, you're done. You should stop. Adding another two or three paragraphs does very little. In fact, it's to the detriment of the work that you've done. So I hate word lengths and requirements on papers and essays like that. But that's another story. But it's the same thing here. Is once we've kind of reached a likely conclusion, the umpire will just call the game because we're done. It's over. And in war, the battle will be called long before the last soldier has been committed, long before the last bullet has been fired. Because if you put all your soldiers in and you use all of your ammunition, and the enemy shows up with another force or something else happens, guess what? Your ability to respond to that is now zero. So you'll fight a battle until you're like, I don't think we can win this. Then what you need to do is pull back. And that's the correct decision. And that's how you win these games, is you make the right decision. Remember, Kriegsspiel is also a test not only of your ability to win a battle or take an objective, it's also a test of character. And it was used as such and is still used as such. For example, when you lose, how do you react to losing? Do you bitterly complain and become an inquisitor against the umpire? Now, I don't want to discourage asking questions of the umpire because that's how you learn, and I think most of the questions that are asked are quite legitimate. But sometimes players can get really cross about it, and they will badger the umpire. But what about this? What about this? Oh, I hate your system. Oh, you suck. I don't want to play anymore. Okay, well, there, you failed the test of character. Now, I've had other players who say, okay, that's cool. Is there anything I could have done better or different? Thank you very much. That's a good test of character. Those are the kinds of officers that you need as subordinates because they're not going to sit there and armchair general the conclusion of the battle, after it's been fought and reason for themselves, well, I should have won. Everybody else was wrong. No, the outcome is what the outcome was. And sometimes things happen because the umpire knows that something's going on, but it's not reported to you because you wouldn't see it or know about it. So there are other factors and conditions that could be involved. Now, post game, the umpire should reveal all of that to you. But in the context of a game, sometimes things will happen that surprise the players, and they want to know, well, why did that happen? Well, I can't tell you. It just happened. What are your orders? And they can get very upset about that. And I get it. We invest our emotions and stuff. We put a lot of time and energy into this. We want a reasonable return on our investment. And when we go all in, or we make the big play and we're told, oh, the big play failed, you lose. Well, yeah, it's reasonable to say, I want to know why. I get that. I get that. And the umpire should answer that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, going all in or losing and stomping about is a failure of the test. I had one player in this game, not this particular battle, but another battle closely related to it, where where they gave an order. They gave an order to send troops this way and this way, and they wanted their cavalry to go here and their infantry to go here or something like that. I reversed them as an umpire. I did it differently. I sent like the cavalry here and the infantry here or whatever. I messed up. I messed up as an umpire. And to make that mess up even worse, the enemy engaged one of the other forces and put them to flight. So now I've not only have I messed up, but I've basically broken the game by continuing to run it. Of course, I didn't know I had messed up at the time. Um, but basically, hey, your units are falling back. They've been defeated in a skirmish. What do you want to do? And the player's like, well, wait a minute, that wasn't my order. Can we change my order? Can we fix this game? I thought about it for a minute, And I said, no, no, sorry, it's messed up. You went down the wrong road for 5 minutes before you realized we're on the wrong road. Now, what are your orders? Oh man, it hurt me to do that to the player. It really did. It really made me personally, emotionally upset. Not like distraught. I wasn't pulling my hair out or nothing. But I was like, man, that is a really awful thing that I've just done. I've done a terrible thing to the player. This is grossly unfair. But you know what? Welcome to war. And that's what we're playing when we play Kriegsspiel. And to the players' credit, they responded appropriately to what I did to them. And for that, they were awarded points in the game for doing the right thing, which is when you find yourself in a messed up situation in war, you don't throw up your hands and surrender or turn around and retreat. You say, okay, what do I have that I can work with? Let's work with this and turn this into a victory. It does not matter that Lieutenant Fresh Minted, whoever so and so out of West Point doesn't know how to read a map correctly, or that he had the map rotated the wrong way or whatever. We are in the position that we are in, and this is what we have to work with. We can worry about Lieutenant Dumbass later, but right now, I need to get the sergeants together and we need to move this way. Let's do it. And that's the correct way to handle the situation. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here because there are a lot. There are a lot. Let's see here. Let's see here. Where's the coffee? Good question. All right, the coffee is right here. I've got my coffee going. Mm. But because I've been talking so much, I haven't been drinking so much. Mm. I need to be drinking it from my Kriegsspiel mug, but I like using my big Starbucks mug because it's just massive. It's like 22 ounces or something ridiculous. That's a lot of go juice. Anyway, there's the coffee. For those of you in Europe, I hope you're having a beer. That's why we call this coffee kegs and Kriegspiel. All right. Um, let's see here. Where's the keg? Well, there you go. There's Jan right away. Where's the keg? That's on you, Jan. You're in Germany, so you should be having the keg right now. All right. Um, well, it would be kind of lame if you just retreated, says Cone. And yeah, sometimes that's the case. But again, it depends on the game, right? A lot of times when players play Kriegspiel, especially if it's a one-off game, they do what I call going all in, which is a poker reference, right? When you play poker, for people who might not understand, you open the game with a little bet called an ante, and it's like $1 or something. It's usually a small amount of money. And it's what you put in so that you have something in the game. You're taking a risk, you're invested in the game. And then players will start betting. And one player will, especially if you're in a bunch of amateurs, will say, I go all in. Now, players don't usually go all in unless they've got something really good in their hand, like a pair of aces, a pair of kings, or something. Otherwise, it is foolish to go all in, especially before you've seen all the other cards that are going to be dealt. But players will do it. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to steal the antes, or what we call the blinds. They're trying to steal the money that everybody put in because they know that most professional players will say, well, if you've got a pair of aces and I don't even have a pair, or I have a small pair or something, I'm going to fold. I'm going to quit the game and give up the ante that I made, and you can just have it because I'm not going to sit here and bet my whole bankroll. Because what if you really do have two aces in the hand? What if you do have a winning hand and I absolutely don't and I have nothing? It's foolish. It's better for me to give up this small amount of money rather than to risk it all on the possibility that you could be lying. And so players will do that, and it's called stealing blinds. And players do that all the time when they're amateurs. And of course, it's a great way to lose. But in the short term, yeah, you collect a little bit of money here, a little bit here. And so young people and dumb players tend to do it. In Kriegspiel, players will push all their blocks in and they'll go all in. They will never retreat, they will never stop, they will never surrender. Even in campaign games, which is why we play campaign games. We play campaign games because we want players to feel a sense of, hey, I need to preserve my army. Let's not commit everything to this one battle. Let's commit and see how it goes. And if it's losing, let's get out. That's the correct desired behavior for a battle. But a lot of times players still push everything to the middle. They commit their very last reserve, and then they wonder why, they're losing the war, because that's what players do. But we want players to play realistically. We want them to think about casualties and say, well, maybe I don't want to win a Pyrrhic victory, right? Or a Pyrrhic victory where I've lost so many troops to win the battle, it's almost as if I had been defeated, because that's a thing. So we want players to not do that. So, yes, sometimes you make contact with the enemy and you have a skirmish and you say, no, I'm going to retreat, which, by the way, was very typical for the Napoleonic battlefield and probably even today. The firefight's only going to last a few minutes. These day long battles, they make the history books because they're rare. Most battles lasted between 5 and 15 minutes. And that was it. Because one side says, hey, you know what? I haven't brought enough dudes to this battle. I'm getting out of here. Whatever it may be, I'm out. And that's the correct military thing to do. Now, I get we're playing it as a game. And so I do understand some of this. I'm going to put a lot of stuff into the middle of the battlefield and see what happens. That makes sense. But pushing it all into the bitter end, come on. Come on. Is that really what a smart commander would do? If you're coaching a ball game, yeah, you play to the bitter end, but this is not a ball game. This is war. It's different. Human lives are at stake. So, let's see here. Uh, Jan says a retreat is a difficult thing to do. Haven't seen many players do it properly. That's right. You need a reserve, right? You need that to use that reserve to basically hold the line while the other units get to the rear, sort themselves out, and start withdrawing. And yeah, people don't know how to do it. In fact, maybe we need to play some games where we simulate that so that players learn to do that. And they learn that a lot of times there's no shame in doing that. The discretion is the better part of valor, right? Sometimes it's better to live to fight another day. So let's see here. Achilles says, yeah, but running away is pretty easy. Yeah, you can turn around and run away. Emmanuel says, generally for a retreat in good order, you need reserves. That's right, folks. Gotta have reserves. By the way, the K22, the Kriegsspiel 2022 system, models all of this stuff very well because, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about it. So I made sure it's in there. It's baked in. Not many players keep them. Yes. Cone says, well, yeah, but it's just Kriegspiel war game. You're right. And if you approach this as it's just another game like chess or Monopoly or Tiddlywinks or whatever, it's going to inform how you play. And you're going to be that guy who pushes everything to the center. But that's not really the best way to play Kriegsspiel because it's not realistic. Now, again, you can play Kriegsspiel however the heck you want. You can come into the IKS and you can play however the heck you want. No problem. You play it the way you want to play. You're right. It's a game. We're here to have fun. But I'm telling you now that if you really want the full experience, you probably need to take it seriously and think, well, would I really commit these units? Or would I say, you know what, it's time to pull back and let's have fun playing the retreat. Again, I also wrote this into the K22 rulebook. If you are all about just winning at all costs, play a different game. It's not the game for you. Don't play K22 rules. Don't play Kriegspiel. Play something else. Okay? Because it is not about winning at all costs. It's about being smart. It's supposed to be a learning experience. But again, you can play however you like. So I get it. Let's see here. Uh, Jan says exactly, just Kriegspiel. There's the fault. Kohn says, okay, sorry. Well, it's okay to have this difference of opinion, and it's okay to be wrong. Because I'll say this to Kohn, while we might not agree, and personally I think that you're wrong, I think it's great that you're wrong because here you're engaged with these different ideas and maybe you'll change your mind. Maybe you won't, but at least you participate. At least you get in, you engage, and you come out with a new understanding. Maybe you change your mind, maybe you don't, but hey, at least you showed up and you participate and you have an opinion. And now you'll be able to articulate and defend your opinion because you've thought it through. You've participated in a discussion. So I think that's great. Let's see here. La Haye Saint, that's the other fortified farmstead. Thank you for that, Achilles. Good day to Theo. Uh, let's see here. Robert says sometimes starting at the bitter end can make an interesting scenario. I've run a couple of rearguard scenarios in the past, which were pretty fun, and that's what I'm saying here. Is the retreat can be fun too, and I think maybe we need to play some retreat scenarios so that people learn there's no shame in withdrawing and preserving your army to fight another day. That's actually a great idea. Jan says this must have been Desert Fox. I plead the fifth. There are so many amendments, and I can only choose one. I pick the fifth. All right. Thiel says, I'm literally going to play a Kriegsspiel game using IKS rules with my friends in a fantasy world. That's great. I'm the Empire. Any tips? Um, oh, well, you're the Empire. Like what, Star Wars? If it's Star Wars, you guys aren't going to hit anything. You might as well retreat now because they're going to blow up your Death Star. Sorry, it's a spoiler. I hope I didn't ruin the movie. Anyway, yay, we got the coffee. Yes, we do. Sean Max says, I know which scenario you're talking about. My issue is that there were still things that could have been done. Test the command ability, which is especially important considering that you had a score. Um, and then 0 of 0. Yeah, because some players were given 0 of 0 scores. And I agree with Sean. I agree with him. He's right. I can't argue with that point. I will say that the only defense of my action is again limited time and resources. So, at a certain point, it's kind of like, all right, I think this is, we've got to an end point, and I have ruled in favor of one side or another. And I think in your game, Sean, it was kind of a default. You did not score 0, did you? I think I don't want to click around and look in the servers. I think you had quite a good score, Sean, as I recall. I could be wrong about that, but I think you did. Cone says, You have changed my mind before. I have never thought of retreating. Hey, well, there we go. Hey, great. And I will try to play it like a real battle to have the true Kriegsspiel experience. Yeah. And you know what? If you don't have fun with the true Kriegsspiel experience, go back to playing it the way you like. It is better that you play it the way you like, even if I would never play that way, but you have fun with it. I think that is better than not playing it at all. Because somewhere along that route, you might have a new insight. I really think Kriegsspiel is a fantastic game to play. And I would rather you play it terribly than not play it at all. I would rather you have fun than not have any fun. Because, yes, we do want to have fun. But, yeah, the fun has some parameters to it. And I think you get a better experience. It's kind of like having your coffee. And there are people who like to load their coffee with sugar and creamer. And that's okay. That's okay. Kind of one of them, right? But there are people who will sit there and they drink their coffee straight black. They don't put any sugar, any creamer in it. And the cool thing about that is when they enjoy the coffee, they get all of the flavor, all of the notes and the aroma. Oh, it's got notes, it's got fruity undertones, and all of that. That's great. That's great that they enjoy that coffee. But it's also okay to say, you know what? I love myself. I am worthy of love. I'm going to add some sugar to my coffee. That's okay too. So there you have it, folks. All right. Um, we are at our time, but I do want to invite anybody who is in the audience on here to, if they want to pop up and say something, raise your hand. I'll give you a few seconds to do that, and I'll let you on the stage. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. All right. I don't see any hands going up, and that's just fine. Maybe I did a great job explaining myself, but we'll see. Feel free to talk about this in the comments, either on the YouTube or in the chat channel on Discord. I want to invite everyone to go to our Patreon. Please support this podcast. You can go to Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel. It's patreon.com/Kriegsspiel. I'll put the link in the YouTube. Please consider supporting the IKS and this podcast by subscribing. It's only like $5 a month. So again, the price of a cup of coffee. All right. I want to thank you all for being here. I hope that you found this informative and insightful. And I will see you on the next adventure.